how can I prepare myself, in a world like this, to kind of come into an organization, right? I mean, are there some general things that one can do? Because you do a lot of the work on, how do we build this future of work kind of skills or competencies, right? So what are some ways, what are some general methods that they can kind of think about?
No, you're right. It's far more complex than it ever was. Sometimes I talk about it as, if earlier it was like a coloring book, the broad strokes were there and you just had to like color between the lines. And yes, you had some flexibility on which shade of blue you want or which shade of green you want. Today, building careers is like having a blank sheet of paper, more and more, and you have to therefore decide what do you want to draw on it. And that's a whole lot harder than simply coloring, between the lines. So really, that's sort of what has shifted. But if you are someone who's, entering the workplace for the very first time and thinking about how to build your career, there are three things which I would say might be helpful. First is just understanding how your organization works. And this is important because the reality is that unless you have someone in your family or, someone to guide you through the process of just understanding how organizations work, reading into even, what's going to be valued here, what's going to get me promoted, what are things that really matter here, and how they're different maybe from another organization that my friend works at. So this whole piece of reading into your organization, it's not a skill that is natural to a lot of people. It certainly wasn't for me. In fact, our whole book, Secret Life of Organizations, is just about how do you read organizations. That's what it is.
Okay.
And for young professionals. So there's that. That's step number one. The other part, which is connected with how do you build your career. So if you understand the organization, what next? The future skills actually map into two broad buckets. Of course, different people have used different buckets, but I'll say the ones which I find most helpful to think about. The first is actually very personal. It's things like understanding myself, understanding where do I shine the brightest. I mean, you and I are not the same. No two people are the same. Environments which bring out the best in you might be different from the environments that bring out the best in me. The kinds of jobs that, you may excel at might be different from the jobs I may excel at. The kinds of people, you do your best with might be different from the kinds of people I do my best in. So, a lot of it is, one bucket is just personal, understanding yourself and understanding what brings out the best in you. Now, there is this course at Stanford called Designing Your Life, and there's a book by that name, a really good book, which is all about this process. How do you understand yourself more so that you can make more skillful choices for yourself? So there's that personal bucket. Within that bucket also comes skills like, okay, what's my emotional resilience? When I will face the absolutely inevitable setbacks, what's my mechanism of riding those waves? It also includes things like my adaptability, my capacity for, a skill that's these days called cognitive agility, which is basically the ability to think through different possibilities and, decide which one is the right choice for you. So there's this whole bucket of deeply personal stuff. And why this was always a little important, but why it's become so important is that now you're the artist with the blank sheet. So, just think of the difference in complexity between using a coloring book and one packet of crayons, which has been handed over to you, versus having a blank canvas and needing to paint. So your degree of self-awareness and understanding and building your own personal skills, emotional intelligence, social skills, cognitive skills, that onus it's actually on you. Organizations help out a little bit by providing learning opportunities, but frankly, that onus is on you because a lot of this is based on personal reflection more than any training program. So, so there's that bucket. The third part is just having a much stronger understanding of where opportunities exist. So, like I spoke about one data point, that roughly half of the content of every role is going to change. But we also know that some 25% of all jobs are going to churn in the next 3-4 years. Now, that's a pretty large number. So how do you understand what that churn is going to look like? And what that means is lots of jobs are going to get destroyed because of technology, automation, because of, climate change, sustainability. A lot of climate change sustainability has had implications through the agreements that governments have signed. And now that so many governments have come together and set a plan for climate change, it's going to have implications for what you can do, what you cannot do, or what are better, more sustainable ways of doing business itself. So there are huge shifts underway, both because of technology and because of climate change. Understanding, interpreting what this means for whatever it is that you want to do, what does it mean? Which roles will sort of vanish soon? Also, where the opportunities are, because really the best careers are built by spending at least some time, and ideally a lot of time, in that place of opportunity. But you have to map that out. Most people will not make that effort because it is effort, it is effort. Yeah. Nobody can tell you. You have to think about, okay, if I'm working in this, in this industry, say auto industry, let me just take an example, and I'm taking an example from an industry which is undergoing, so much change. What do some of these agreements mean for the auto industry? What will happen when the, current engine, whatever the internal combustion engine, is phased out? What will it mean when, other technologies will become the dominant technologies? Now you have to figure all of this out, and you have to see for yourself where the line of opportunities is. And that is moving every year. It's moving every year. So that onus is on, the individuals. So there are 3 parts to it: understanding the organization so that you can navigate through it skillfully. And it's not natural to everyone. And particularly when you're right at the start of your career, very often you have no clue how to do that. Then it is understanding yourself and building your personal, skills, which will be operational across different environments. And finally, it's about understanding where the world is headed and what's that line of opportunity that's opening up. That's the super exciting part. Yeah. It's much more complicated. I really have to admit, it's far more complicated. Also,
far more potentially
satisfying.